Macro.
Okay, very nice.
Very nice.
Very
indeed.
nice. Right. It's funny when I say right like that. Everybody, or a lot of people
Right.
know instantly what I'm talking about. It's like, is that Monty Python? Yeah, dude. I don't talk like that.
Naturalmente.
But it's pretty great. That recognizability of a single word said in a slight mediocre accent.
Slightly. See, whenever I try to do that, I've just been, like, reciting Albuquerque in an Australian accent while waiting for James and Nathan to fix their audio issues before
so we couldn't
started
hear it until
recording.
the tail end of it.
Oh dear.
But I heard like
But
2 words, and I was like, "Oh, when you said sauerkraut," I was like, "He's been reciting Albuquerque with an accent this whole time, hasn't he?"
indeed I have. So yeah, that was my
That was your
my
vocal
way of-
warm-up?
That was my vocal warm-up. But whenever I try to do a British accent, immediately after having done Australian, it just doesn't work.
It's tricky, yeah.
I can't go. I just want to say bake. I can't say bake anymore.
Yeah,
That's not British. That's not
Okay.
British.
yeah. It's interesting when you're doing impressions of accents, and sometimes you can like, if you really concentrate, you can like switch between them pretty accurately. But then
I
if
feel
they're
like-
too similar, then it's kind of tough.
Because like Australian accents are basically just a bent out of shape British accent, and it
Mhm.
kind of likes to stay that way once you've
It's
done
like
it.
the fork of the British accent got stuck in the garbage disposal of geography, and out came the Australian accent.
Actually, that's most English-speaking accents.
Yeah, let's be
And
real.
then the New Zealand accent, the Australian accent, then got stuck in the garbage disposal of the Australian accent and ended up becoming New Zealand.
Mhm.
Yep. But slightly more bent. It was in there for like a split second longer.
It got like bent in half. All the vowels got shortened up.
Mhm.
Right like that.
And the only reason there's an Irish accent is because the British forced them to speak English.
Yes.
Mm.
But there's really like a billion Irish accents.
Yeah, because there's different dialects within Ireland itself, the Gaelic, I believe, right?
It's not Gaelic. Well,
Or-
people in America and maybe England call it Gaelic, but the Irish people call it Irish.
oh yeah, they speak Irish.
We speak Irish. It's Irish. Duh.
Uh-huh.
That
When
sounds
you say
right.
Gaelic, they have like a slight variation on soccer that they call, it's Gaelic football, but Gaelic is the shorthand. So when you say the word Gaelic, that's what they think of.
Oh yeah. And when you say boot, it could be either something you wear on your feet or where you stick stuff in the car. That
Nice.
one doesn't make a ton of sense. I think that's a British thing too, but
Or it could just be starting your computer up.
Because the trunk is already taken by a suitcase.
Right.
So you can't call it a trunk because that would mean the thing you carry your stuff around in through the airport. So they needed a new word for it, and they said, this is roughly speaking the back of the car. Let's call it the boot.
And then let's just go to the other side of the car and call that the bonnet.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, never mind. I'll spare the anatomy jokes.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, let's see. There's some other. I think when you read old American literature, like from the turn of the century, like 1900s and stuff, and like a lot of British words and things make a little more sense when you're used to reading that type of stuff, because American English used to be fairly similar.
Well,
A lot of, at least in like the formal American speech that they use for writing books, so that most people could understand. I remember contrast that though with like if you read The Red Badge of Courage, for example, it is written as if the people were speaking it. So there's a lot of apostrophes and split up words that are not normal. So for my freshman in high school brain, it was like, what? Or what is that word?
It's trying to read. It's like trying to read unupdated David Hume,
Mm.
where it's just like a Scottish man writing in 1770s, British parlance, and it's just like there's just apostrophes everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, for most of my main texts in class, I haven't had to, but there was one chapter in this anthology that we have that wasn't assigned, but being a philosophy nerd, I read it, some of it anyway. And it's just like, oh gosh, oh, old syntax, oh,
Half the
my
work,
brain.
you have to translate what he's saying, and then you have to synthesize what he's
And
saying.
you have to translate what he's saying into modern English, and then you have to understand it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard enough to understand what modern philosophers are saying when you can read it in their native language.
Yep.
Right.
Never mind a translation.
Yep.
Because a lot of little things get lost in the minutia of translation. Just
But even
context.
if you do read it in their native language, it's still hard to read, just because it's a
It's
conceptual
philosophy.
thing. Well, ancient philosophy is not that way.
Sure.
That's been
Translations do definitely reduce the amount of meaning, at least in English, because we have words that are so poor, whereas Greeks are just so.
They were
rich.
very efficient with, you could have one word mean several different things based on context.
Well, that's actually not at all how Greek works. They have
No,
several
we're that
different-
efficient. They
Oh.
aren't.
That's what we do. We take one word and we apply to it many meanings, whereas they have unique words.
Oh, wait,
to
yeah, no, I
des-
flipped
to
that. I flipped
describe
that.
the distinctions. Yes. you
Yeah.
did.
I flipped
So
that.
they have 6 different words for love because there are different kinds of love, and they use all of these different terms that mean substantially different things.
I
Whereas
remember,
we have words that we could use, but there's nothing as succinct as a single word in most cases to adequately describe the concepts we're using. So
Mhm.
there's that.
It's interesting when somebody throws a new word at me in a conversation, and I was like, oh, I understood based on context what you were saying, but now I have to go look up that word. What was the, I think people say, or like different forms of a word. If something has a capacity for something, another way to say it is it's capacious,
Oh.
which makes sense. And I was like, that does make sense, but I wouldn't have thought to use that. I think I was listening to like a episode of God's Planning or whatever with Father. Oh shoot,
Father Gregory Pine.
Audacity, you okay? Okay, good.
yeah, it looks like Audacity is okay. It was
Are-
and we're just gonna keep rolling.
Okay, keep rolling.
Discord committed die for some reason.
Are we keeping this in the thing?
May as well. I don't have to clap again.
This is content.
This is certainly content.
Wait, so you can still hear us?
Yeah.
Oh, that's weird. Because the Discord window completely shut off, and now I'm just starting it back up.
Yeah. It packages the audio and video separately.
I'm assuming you kept rolling.
Yeah.
Okay.
Really.
Okay, let's keep going then.
I presently can't see them, but I know that they're there. So we can podcast like that.
Yep. I think we got the spinning purple blocks.
Spinning purple blocks.
Speaking of spinning purple blocks, how's everybody's week been so far?
It's
I
been
may
alright.
have had the only thing this weekend that involved blocks. So my dad's remodeling the house, and pretty much the whole thing's tore up. There's only the master bedroom, the kitchen, and the garage is the new living space, which does not have electricity. If it did have electricity, it would be illegal and finable finably illegal, I think is what we said. So it does not have electricity in it. No, it does not. No. Anyway, so I helped Dad a little bit in the basement because we're moving a staircase. And to do that, we need new, like, support beams for the floor joists and stuff. But when the basement was laid and poured and stuff like that, right? They had, like, the floor beams for the first floor, and then they, like, poured concrete around. And so there's, like, concrete between the floor joists, which is annoying because now we have to, we had to break apart some concrete with a rock hammer. Well, not like a rock polishing hammer, like a handheld jackhammer, but basic.
So he had to get busy living or get busy dying here.
You didn't say that into the microphone, yes, but we got busy. We got busy living.
All
say that.
All Riley can see is just my thumbnail right now. So
I mean,
That is right. With a background blob color correspondent to the dominant color of the thumbnail image, as Discord does.
which we audibly portrays Remy
From Ratatouille.
of Ratatouille fame choking on the terrible soup that Linguini has made because for whatever reason my computer camera refuses to work.
Actually, I think at that point he had
there we
only
are.
smelled it. Anyway,
Yeah, he's
Hey.
anyway.
so I got to remove a block of cement this weekend. So yeah, because I went home for my brother's 13th birthday,
like you do.
like you do.
I'm gonna go home. So we celebrate our birthdays around here with blocks of cement. Here you go.
That's something you now know about Minnesota.
Yep.
You learned something today.
One thing
You know
that
how like you have your anniversaries, right? Golden anniversary, golden birthday, diamond birthday. This was his cement birthday.
Yep, he's 13. The foundations of his manhood are being laid.
Concrete.
In a manner of speaking, the foundations of his manhood are being laid.
Oh, did I
here
refer
with
to
the
it as a
beginning
block of
adolescence.
cement? I hope no.
You
civil-
did.
No civil. I hope no civil engineers
none
are
of our
listening.
civil engineers. Well,
I apologize.
The
If there
one
are
civil engineer we
engineers.
know probably doesn't listen to this podcast.
If there are any
so
civil engineers listening to this podcast, and I know you are,
What's your
Please
deal with
complain.
roundabouts?
deal with it.
please.
Or email us
love-
at playdfamous@gmail.com.
I love roundabouts. They are such good engineering.
They don't work in every intersection though.
They work in every intersection where all of the participants using them know how to work a roundabout,
Mm-hmm.
which is most of the not Americans.
Or when the speed limit is such that slowing down into the roundabout is a reasonable thing to do.
The thing about roundabouts is you have to know where you're trying to go beforehand.
And it depends on
You
how
also
big.
have to know
they
how
are.
roundabouts work,
Yeah.
and you know where to get off of the roundabout.
Because a lot of people just go into autopilot while they're driving, and so if you're not paying attention, it can be easy to be confused by a roundabout.
You can get really turned around
Yeah. You spin me right round, baby. Right round.
like a record.
Like a Rick. But actually, though, I can't tell you how many roundabouts I've seen tire tracks on that median thing, though.
Modern roundabouts.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, that was my
Speaking
weekend.
of
in
cement
the week.
/ concrete, I forget if I talked about when I talked about this. Might have just been in the car or something, but I was watching Monsters Inc. with John and Faith last week, and there's that part where Sully's trying to get Boo to go to sleep, and he pulls up a couple cinder blocks and sit on them. I'm just
in
like,
his room.
why does he have cinder blocks just sitting there? Like, I didn't question this until I was a 24-year-old man, but like, why does Sully have cinder blocks in his room?
Workout purposes.
I guess that's sort of always what I assumed growing up, but I was just like, huh? I don't know why that detail. I seized on that detail, but
I also like in that scene just how effortlessly he pushes them because he's huge.
Yep.
Anyway,
I'll kidnap 1,000 children before I let this podcast die.
that's a tangent.
If we ever do that,
If we get to that point, I
if
think
we
we're no
review
longer
that
qualified.
movie, then that's going to be the episode title.
I'll kidnap 1,000
That's for
children.
sure. I'll kidnap 1,000. Maybe not.
Maybe
considering
not,
that.
yeah.
And the
I'm a
thumbnail is Mr.
seminarian and
Waternurse with a
everything.
gun.
We're trying not to shoot ourselves completely in the foot.
There's 6 between the 3 of us. We've
What?
got feet to shoot.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Not kids, feet. And moving on.
Speaking of feet,
Oh, we're the Palladian Papists. I'm James.
I'm Nathan.
and I'm Riley.
We're not talking about monsters.
We're not
Inc.
talking
this
about
week.
feet.
Please let me know.
It depends on the movie we.
Speaking of feet, we're doing philosophical today. The Guardians of the Galaxy.
In a world where one man will decide whether to pull a lever and kill one man, or not pull a lever and allow 5 people to die, find out in Philosophical.
So yeah, philosophical is part of the podcast where we get philosophical about films.
but not feet. Because
Please,
anyway.
No.
So
But-
yeah, we're talking about Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy.
Now, astute longtime fan of the podcast will probably point out, didn't you guys already talk about the MCU? Yes, but that was early podcast days, and we sort of blew over the whole thing.
Right.
Bit off more than we could chew there. So
Well,
we're
we
gonna
focused on like the main Avenger characters, Iron Man and Tony, and a little bit of Hulk and Black Widow in there because they're kind of the main characters of like the universe series as
The
a whole.
overarching narrative.
Right.
Yeah. So now we're
Whereas
gonna go back
we only
and
really touched lightly on some of the side pockets, like your Doctor Stranges or your Guardians of the Galaxy and stuff. And so,
we're gonna pop back and revisit some of them along the way here and there.
right. So, the first Guardians of the Galaxy film begins in space
Yep.
in modern day 2014 ish, where you have like this remote planet with like a temple vault thing that a certain notorious
Mysterious
criminal
spaceman.
dancing to 80s music comes to steal an ancient orb artifact. His name is Peter Quill, better known as
Star-Lord, man.
who? But yeah. So he's actually not better known as Star-Lord. Nobody knows who he is. Star-Lord gets this orb from this temple thing, has a run-in with some thugs hired by a big bad in space called Ronan the Accuser, who's kind of just there to be big and bad and want the Power Stone, which is later revealed to be in the orb. But after doing that, Peter Quill gets he promptly gets captured by the.
No, he goes to.
He meets back up with his pirate crew, with his.
Well, he goes to Xandar to try to pawn off the orb to
Right.
this guy. Assassin is being sent after him to recover the orb.
An
Because
assassin working
Ronan
for
really
Ronan,
wants it.
because she's been loaned out to Ronan by Thanos, who wants the stone, and it's because of Infinity Saga stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So they get in a fight.
And Rocket, the raccoon, and his boy Groot, the
His
tree,
tree
man, roll in and like, hey, this guy's worth a lot of money. Let's get him. So Gamora and Groot and Rocket are all fighting over.
Well,
Peter
Rocket
Quill.
and Groot are fighting over Quill, and Gamora's fighting over the stone, and Peter Quill's just fighting to get out.
Mm-hmm. And they all get arrested for being a public nuisance.
And also, being thieves and assassins,
Mm-hmm.
such.
Yep.
So
And
they get to prison. They get hooked on a feeling. They get
they're high on believing.
that you're in love with me sort of thing.
Yep.
So they're in prison, and they're like, man, we gotta bust out of prison because a lot of people don't like Gamora in prison because she works for Thanos, and Thanos killed a lot of people, such as the family of a certain Drax the Destroyer, a bald tattooed guy who takes everything literally.
Basically just Dave Bautista with a lot of makeup.
Right. So they decide to escape and get the orb back and sell it for a bunch of money and split it between the all of them, even though Gamora's like, I want to take you...
Ulterior motives.
Yeah, they all have ulterior motives, but they all have ulterior motives pointed in the same direction. And so they team up and break out of prison in a great big action scene riot, and it's fun. And then they get in the ship, and they fly to a place called Nowhere, Knowwhere, and it's inside of a giant Titanic, like, skull of a celestial being. It's like the city inside this giant skull, and it's kind of cool. So Peter and Gamora and I think Rocket go to see the Collector to sell their rock, while the other guys are...
Don't get any more of that rock. I ain't playing.
But yeah, they'll go try and sell the rock to the Collector, and it's like, I'm gonna be a exposition for the Infinity Stones and what they are.
By the way,
like,
this thing can zap a lot of people.
It's basically like one of the most powerful things in the universe. There's about 6 of them, and thank you for adding it to my collection.
And they're like, whoa, crap! This is dangerous. We can't just let this thing get out there.
This will make a fine addition to my collection.
Yeah.
I'm just imagining someone building a lightsaber, but instead of like a kyber crystal in the middle, it's
Just
an
one of the
Infinity
Infinity
Stone.
Stones.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there's a bit of a ruckus there with the Infinity Gem, like exploding because the Collector servant girl tried to touch it and got blown up because she couldn't handle it.
And Ronin's goons show up and try to take the orb.
Ronin's goons show up because Drax got drunk and called him to get revenge on his his family. But he gets absolutely thrashed because Drax is no match for Ronin.
Well, he's blind with rage and grief.
And also slightly drunk.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, there's this big hubbub fight in the city. They get kind of beat up, and Nebula is Gamora's sister. She shows up and fights, and Gamora gets like left in space to float around for a bit before Peter jumps out and saves her. And they're picked up by Yondu, who's a blue guy with a metal mohawk. And,
that he uses to control his flying arrow.
Right.
He's the captain of the Ravagers, which are these mercenary pirate types that float around space. And he kidnapped and raised Peter.
Because Peter is from Earth.
Yeah.
But Yondu picked him up.
No, I think... shoot. Crap. Bad guy's name we were just talking about. Why am I forgetting already?
Whomst?
The bad guy. The main bad
Ronin?
guy. Ronin. Yeah. Ronin. So he took the power... He took the orb at some point, right? In the hubbub. And so he goes off to execute his evil plan.
Go to, like, the capital city of space.
Xandar.
And blow it up.
Because they killed his father or something.
Well, because he's like a Kree or something, and he's like mad and stuff. He's evil. He's there to be evil. He's not much of a villain.
Mm-hmm.
He is just kind of the bad guy, a reason to unite against, like, Thanos Jr.
Yeah.
Even though he's not the son of Thanos, he's just a smaller version.
He has Thanos even calls him boy.
Thanos.
Thanos even calls him boy. Boy.
So anyway, they're with the Ravagers, and Yondu's all mad, like, "Hey, Quill, you had the Power Stone and stuff. You're
supposed to bring that
You're
back
supposed
to
bring
us.
that to me, and we had a deal. And didn't I raise you? Didn't I tell the boys not to eat you?" And Peter's like, "Why?
That's not a normal thing."
And then they kind of agree, like, "Okay, how about we all go stop Ronin? We'll get your ball back, and then
we'll also save some people along the way."
Right. We can be self-interested and save people along the way, right? That's the thing. Mm-hmm. Then Rocket and Groot and Drax show up in the Delano 7, Peter Quill's ship, and it's like, "Hey, I'm gonna blow you up if I don't get Quill back, it's like, hey, we agree on stopping Ronan, so don't blow us up. We're cool. And he's like, oh, okay. Anyway, so now they go to stop Ronan's forces from blowing up the planet. And there's a bit of a moment with the team as they come together.
Like, we kind of suck. How are we going to pull this off? It's like, you know what? We do, and we're going to do it.
It's like, okay, fine. So there's the big plan. Gamora fights Nebula. The things get blown up. There's a spaceship battle. And one thing leads to another. I think they like get into Ronan's like throne room command center chamber and try and blow him up, but it doesn't because he's got the power stone in his hammer, and he's super powerful now. So they only really end up crashing his like flagship into the planet, and now they're just kind of in the wreckage. And Ronan's like, "Hey, I'm gonna blow up the planet now, okay?" And Peter Quill's like, "How about we dance off instead?" And he's like, "What? Dance off? You and me? What are you doing?" "I'm distracting you." He gets tackled by a bunch of people. They manage to grab the Power Stone, but Peter's like
Goes
about
all
to
sicko mode, and
right. He goes sicko mode, but he's about to fall apart because he's a one guy who's not quite strong
powerful
enough
to hold it in.
So they all hold hands because it's an imagery theme in this movie.
That and the energy is being distributed among them.
Right.
evenly.
And they use the power of the Power Stone to blast the Ronin, and he just disintegrates. They put the stone in a ball again, and happily they saved the day. Yay! Woo!
Also, Groot died, but not actually.
Oh yeah, he died saving them from the impact. But
now there is a baby Groot.
there's a baby Groot because Rocket saved a splinter and planted it. And so afterwards, they get pardoned by the space government. They're like, "Hey, stop being bad." Okay, and he's like, "Sure, we'll be bad as little as possible," which is not exactly the most reassuring, but. And then, as a team, now that they've become kind of a found family, they fly off into the sunset and into a sequel.
Yep.
Also, they make Yondu think he got the ball back, but he didn't. They left it with Space Police government to put it in a vault. Not that that really does anything because Thanos shows up just with it at the beginning of Endgame and Infinity War anyway. But, so yeah, that's kind of where things end in the first one. Do we want to talk about the second one at all? I mean, it's fun and it's got some interesting little things in it.
Let's go for it.
I mean, it's.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it as recently, so we'll have to do more broad strokes because turns out Peter Quill isn't actually 100% human. There's a ancient space celestial being powerful guy called Ego, and he's the dad of Peter Quill. So Peter's got some
boy.
Yeah, dad of this particular boy.
yes,
Um,
and so that's part of the reason he could contain the Power Stone's power as much as he could. It's because he has celestial blood in him.
yeah. So the second movie starts off. They're being hired by this race of people on a planet to protect their massive, super valuable batteries from this giant space octopus monster.
Fun fight scene, fun music. Baby Groot's cute.
Rocket steals some of the batteries as a joke, and these people find out and get really mad, so they send their drone army after them. So as they're running away from the drone army, they crash land on a planet and are found by Peter Quill's dad, Ego.
I'm your space dad.
I'm your space dad.
He's like, hey, come to my planet and
We'll catch up on all
catch
this
up on
lost time.
father-son time.
And Gamora's like, I don't trust him. Raccoon's like, screw you guys, I'm going to fix the ship. And then, meanwhile, Yondu and the Ravagers catch up trying to find Peter Quill. Get a little bit of revenge on him. Well, no, they... the space battery people put a bounty on their heads for stealing the batteries. So Yondu goes to collect on that bounty. although he's secretly trying to protect Peter because he kind of turns out has a soft spot for him.
And
Having
also,
raised him and all.
right.
And his crew aren't exactly all about that. So after they capture Rocket and Groot, who were the ones left behind, the crew mutinies and takes over the ship, and makes Yondu a prisoner with Rocket and Groot. So Yondu and Rocket and Groot work together and hatch a massive escape set piece. And they escape with one of the loyal members of the crew, and blow up the remains of the ship with Taserface and company on board. So they go off, and then meanwhile, Gamora, Drax, and Mantis, this empath alien,
Who is like the maidservant of Ego.
they go to the planet, and Ego's showing them around like, see, all this will be yours if you join me.
Everything the light touches
Yeah.
will be your kingdom.
And Peter's like, you know what, this is really cool.
me, and together we can rule the galaxy.
Because
I
I've
mean,
actually kind of
pretty
planted
much.
bits of me all over the galaxy, so when I do the
With
thing,
our powers combined, we can envelop the entire galaxy and make it part of us.
that's actually the whole point of me creating you. I wanted to have a successor to share it with.
Also,
I
gave
kind
your
of
mom
like gave your
cancer.
mom cancer
Peter's
because
like,
I'm space guy.
What? So Nebula shows up and fights Gamora, and they're like, wait, something's very wrong. And it turns out the reason why Yondu had been sent to kidnap Peter was because
He had been hired by
Ego to get him. And
because he's been doing that for a long time, actually.
yeah,
collecting
Peter wasn't
the
his only
kids he
kid
sired.
that he tried to... because he was trying to get somebody who would inherit his celestial being genes.
And be able to contain the power. Most of them couldn't, as evident by the bones they find buried underneath the Utopia garden that Ego lives on.
And so Peter's all mad because you killed my mom, and his friends are all like, yep, we gotta kill this guy. So they have to blow up his giant brain in the middle, his big brain in the middle of the planet.
Because like the body he has that's all Russell or Kurt Russell-y is actually just kind of an extension, not his being.
Yep.
He's actually a giant planet, and at some point the whole planet just has his face. And it's kind of funny, but it's also exactly like the comics, so that ridiculousness is warranted.
Yeah. Yondu, Groot, and Rocket show up, and they join the fight, and also the yellow battery people show up because they're still mad about stealing the batteries.
So they use that to their advantage.
So there's a giant battle. Baby Groot takes a bomb to the center of the planet, and they blow it up. Yondu's Mary Poppins, y'all, and then they get into space, but there's only one spacesuit, and Yondu gives it to Peter to save him. And
Because now that
sacrifices himself.
Ego's disintegrating, his celestial powers going
He might have
away.
been your father, but he wasn't your daddy. So yeah, he sacrifices his life to save Peter. And, because of the kidnapping the kids thing, Yondu had been sort of exiled from like the main Ravager clans or whatever for breaking their code. But after he sacrificed himself to save Peter, he sort of redeemed himself, and so they have a proper Ravager funeral for him at the end, and it's kind of a nice little scene. So yeah, that's volumes 1 and 2 more or less summarized.
There'll be a third one eventually, I think.
Eventually,
And
yeah.
they might have Adam Warlock. They might not.
Yeah, because they tease that.
Please.
Yeah.
We want Adam Warlock in MCU.
I am not familiar enough with him as a character. I know he's like very like connected to the Infinity Saga in the comics.
He really should have been in the Infinity Saga movies, but
They
But-
decided
but-
Captain Marvel instead. But anyway, we're not going to get into that. What do we like about the Guardians of the Galaxy films? Can you believe? Okay, the first one came out 7 years ago. How nuts is that?
Jeez. Yeah.
I remember it like it was yesterday.
Oh yes, 7 years passed.
My junior year of high school.
Well, because at this point, I think Civil War, or not Civil War, Winter Soldier had just come out, and then over that summer, who the heck are the Guardians of the Galaxy? This is another Marvel movie. This is in the same universe. Okay,
It was like
and everyone's like, it's really weird, but it's kind of great.
They have highly different vibes than the rest of the MCU.
Yes,
right.
For the
That was like
time,
their
it was
first
very
really
experimental.
experimental one. Like up until like the Age of Ultron, they were pretty formulaic, the MCU movies.
Mm-hmm.
But then Guardians happened, and it kind of did something different. Then Ant-Man happened, and it was more heist movie than anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, it was at that point that they started to diversify and feel more varied and different. You had Winter,
Yeah. With the bright colors and wacky space adventures and the soundtrack and everything and
like
the
the neon
cast of
80s
characters,
aesthetic-ish thing
It-
going on.
really works.
Yeah.
It's the Guardians films are very fun. And
And-
that's definitely the vibe they were going for.
Right. And I loved how, like, this is, like, one of the first times the whole premise is kind of wacky, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've got a guy, a green lady, a tree, and a raccoon, and
Giant
like,
tattoo muscle man.
right. They're on a team. This is like the superhero team, and it's kind of weird and comic book
In
crazy.
space.
And they leaned into it,
Mhm.
and they made it work because they didn't take themselves so seriously that we couldn't take them seriously.
Mhm. Well, like even at the beginning of the movie, Star-Lord or Peter Quill is trying to be like, "I'm Star-Lord," and these
They're like, what kind of
alien
a
guys are
name
like,
is
"Who are you?"
Star Lord?
yeah, they're kind of making fun of him.
So they lampshade their ridiculousness,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what kind of makes it so fun and works so well.
Mm-hmm. What would we say like the theme of the first movie would be? Like the major theme?
I think the major theme of both of them is family,
Mm-hmm.
because
Family.
it's even got Vin Diesel. Come on.
Yeah, it does have.
He
Vin
says,
Diesel.
"I am
Vin Diesel
Groot."
is Groot. So
But at the
when
end of the
there's
first
family,
movie,
there's Vin Diesel.
he says, "We are Groot."
"True, yeah." So it's a
So,
family
but like
movie.
Rocket is like this adoptive dad to Groot,
Mhm.
or caretaker in the first one, but very much a dad in the second one.
Mhm.
You've got this scuffle between sisters. Thanos
Gamora
is a
and
father
Nebula.
figure to them. Peter's relationship with both of his fathers.
Like his
One, his
Yondu, who raised him, and then his biological dad.
who wants to take over the universe.
Deals with the loss of his mother at the beginning of the movie when he was a boy, because Ego gave her cancer.
And then there's Drax, whose family was murdered at the hands of Ronin. And also he kind of, in the second film, really connects with Mantis and kind of becomes
See-
big brother, father-ish figure to her.
I'd say the first movie is more of like a redemption like a sort of anti-hero redemption. And then the second movie really leans into family. Because
Yes.
obviously by the end of the first movie they sort of start to form a
The
family.
familial, the like found family breadcrumbs are set in the first movie.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
then they're expounded upon in the second one.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
But redemption is also a theme that happens in both.
Mm-hmm.
You've got both Gamora and Nebula, who are these assassins who are kind of cold-hearted and not only living for themselves and to please their father,
That
who's
and
never
like
satisfied.
Rocket's kind of facade of being kind of a crass troll
Even
who
though
likes to mess with people, but it's sort of to mask over the pain he feels because he's a raccoon, a sentient raccoon who's created through these terrible experiments. So he's dealt with a lot of pain and trauma in his life, which he tries to mask over with just being kind of a sarcastic butt to everyone around him. And Yondu in the second movie points that out to him. Is like, you're being a crass, sarcastic, mean person. You and I, we're not so different. You need to quit the act and start caring about.
And the thing is,
caring for and about people.
the thing is, Rocket's paired up with Groot, who is the most innocent and naive and just self-giving creature in the entire galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of a toxic one-sided relationship for most of the first movie.
Mm-hmm. Groot's kind of Rocket's muscle, but then by the end of it, you do see that Rocket really does care for Groot.
So I think like the first one definitely has that redemption aspect to it. Also, so I think the two main themes of these movies are redemption and family.
Yeah, and then Yondu's character, like he manages to, because Peter Groot was, he grew up to not having a dad in his life, and so Yondu was really sort of that figure to him who raised him and made him into kind of a fierce mercenary warrior, under threats of being eaten, of course. But whereas he truly deep down cares about Peter, whereas Ego is all about himself, as the name would imply.
Real subtle there, Marvel.
He's all about using Peter to achieve a higher end and doesn't really care about him as his own son, as he ought to. Yeah, I guess any things to add, Riley?
No, I think you guys have really hit on the stuff I find enjoyable about it. Just the aesthetic and the kind of crazy, fun, family thing that is going on there.
Also, you've got Peter Quill's like connection with his mother.
Yeah,
Because she left him like a
mixtape,
like a
in a
mixtape
Walkman.
of like 80s music, and he listens to it. He's got like a tape player in his spaceship, because of course he does. But he like also listens to it on his Walkman he had as a kid, and that's like how he kind of keeps his connection to home by listening to the music. But it also just acts as really fun music to accompany the set pieces. You've got just all these really fun 80s songs. A lot of the time, when they do like in soundtracks, they just borrow songs. It can sometimes feel cheap, but I feel like the way they've crafted
It's a thematic
this movie,
choice in this movie.
right? I think the way they've themed the movie and around Peter Quill was a kid in the 80s, and he's kind of stuck there, wants to go home sort of thing, but also carrying around the last bit of his mother that died. So I think that's another like cool thing that lends itself to the aesthetic and the vibe in the action sequences with the music blaring, but also it works itself into the narrative a bit, particularly in the second one. There's actually one bit in the second one that actually annoys me quite a bit, though.
What's that?
So in the beginning of the movie, there's that flashback scene to when Ego was on Earth with Peter's mom.
Oh yeah.
And in the background,
It's
there's
gotta
the
go
song.
on. Sorry.
There's a song called Brandy playing in the background, right?
Yep.
Brandy, you're a fine girl. So like, it is perfect for that moment because it's like, oh, I know what's going on. This is him. The song has this connection to the characters where he's like a sailor going to sea sort of thing. He's not gonna stay long, but he's gonna hold love forever, whatever. But like later in the movie, I mean, the song comes up a couple more times because it's on his mixtape or whatever, and Ego has to explain the symbolism of the song, and I'm like, dude, you don't have to explain that. I liked it when it was subtle. Now
Yeah.
I don't like it. Stop it.
But most other people aren't as familiar as at
Who
least our
cares?
age.
Who cares? If they don't get it, they don't get it. If you get it, you get it, and it's that much cooler.
Sure.
But it's like that's like one of the things that annoyed me. It's like, oh, you're over-explaining. Stop over-explaining, please. And I think in general, the second one went a little more extreme in some areas. I was like, that's not as fun. Why'd you have
Yeah,
to go
the humor
exactly
got a little
there?
more crass unnecessarily at points.
I mean, it was still fun, still a good movie.
But there was a point with Yondu going to town. I'm like, this is mildly excessive.
I think in general, yeah, the second one was fun, but like a little self-indulgent.
Yeah.
Curious to see what they do with the third one.
Particularly if Thor's going to be involved.
Thor is gonna be involved. He's on the ship, so he's gonna be part of the story for at least.
And Peter's definitely still the captain.
Are they going to be the Asgardians of
Certainly.
the galaxy?
I hope that comes up. I hope that's a bit that they do. That'll
Yeah.
be fun.
Because that's the thing that happened in the comics, actually.
Yep.
Except there's not a whole lot of Asgardians left floating around.
No, they're all
there's-
kind of like in Iceland or something.
Right, like Lady Sif is just their governor in Norway or something.
Back in Norway where they belong.
Yep. Where their names won't sound ridiculous. Let's see. I suppose with that, should we get into our transcendental analysis?
Suppose.
Suppose.
All right. Truth. What are some truths we can find in Guardians of the Galaxy?
He may be your father, but he ain't your
your
daddy.
Sometimes it turns out the real Guardians of the Galaxy for the friends we made along the way.
We have not done that in a while.
We did it not too long ago. I can't remember what.
I don't remember
I was
what it
listening
was.
to one of our episodes with one of my classmates. Shout out Felix.
Hey, Felix.
On my way to ministry, and we did that bit. I think in the Toy Story episode.
Oh, sure.
So it hasn't been that long. Only like a month and a half.
Yeah.
Anyway.
At any rate, that's not the truth. Well, okay, that is.
It is the
I
truth.
think that it works into it, yeah.
That's not the only truth we can find in Guardians of the Galaxy. Although, to be fair, it is kind of part of the major thematic material.
Right, exactly. So, like,
It's an apt joke.
it's like,
There's sort of the Marvel themes about, setting aside differences with others to
come together.
come together.
Right now.
Is that played at any point?
No, that's a 60s song.
Okay.
I mean, there are some older than 80 songs in that playlist, but no. it
Right.
doesn't. Anyway.
But anyway, setting aside differences for the greater, for the greater good and saving lives and so forth. That's very much present here, in both films.
Right, because they
'cause
are
at
a very,
first-
like, diverse and disparate group that all have their own
Right. They're at the
goals.
beginning. They're like, okay, we're going to make a lot of money by selling the super powerful orb thing. Oh, turns out this is an incredibly dangerous super weapon that can.
vaporize a planet if you whack a hammer.
We can't let this fall into the wrong hands, kind of a thing. So they're able to set aside greed in favor of saving lives and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the second movie, they're willing to lay their lives down for one another personally.
And Peter Quill's willing to, like, give up the promise of absolute power and a father he never had.
Right. Because, there's sort of the vague stakes of, like, a lot of, like, the whole galaxy being in danger in the background.
But
But
it is a lot more personal. In the
yeah, you
second one.
feel like they're fighting a lot more for one another in the conflict of the second movie, which works just fine.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, let's see. Anything else?
Well, I do feel like a lot of that was more of goodness points than truth points.
Yeah. Truth. I guess you need to deal with the wounds of your past. Is like another theme that comes up because Peter's got his whole deal with his mother dying when he was young. Rocket's got his whole deal with being experimented upon and made into
A trash panda.
Yeah.
No one is irredeemable.
Yeah. Like,
Like,
Gamora's
even-
got her thing. She was an assassin for the greatest murder in the universe.
And Nebula was taken apart and rebuilt to be the greatest assassin she could be.
Mm-hmm.
And even she, more machine than human.
Yeah. Drax, his whole
Change-
family
has
was
changed for it.
murdered, and that still drives him, the seeking revenge, but also finding healing and purpose.
Right, because in the end, revenge is empty.
Mm-hmm.
But it's these connections he makes with his new crew.
Mm-hmm.
This is his family. This is the people he protects now.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So
Finding purpose that way.
finding purpose in other people.
Yeah.
Really.
Reject selfishness. Return to monkey. Wait. No. Return to family.
Monkey.
Life is more meaningful when lived for others is sort of a theme, or not a theme, but like a moral of Guardians of the Galaxy, I'd say.
Yeah.
One lived for family.
Family.
Dang it, they need to have Groot say family at least once.
See, you should just take that clip and edit it into every I Am Groot scene.
Yeah. Family. Yep. Any other truth dealios in that? We good? Okay, goodness. What is good in the Guardians of the Galaxy neighborhood?
Groot is good.
Groot is the good. He
In
is
the first movie.
In the first movie. In the second one, he's a
He's
little...
a vulgar child.
Mhm.
a little bit, yes.
Totally unbeknownst to anyone who doesn't speak Groot. However,
Rocket does speak Groot, and he's like, don't talk to me like that.
That's why you don't like hats? Because they take it off and you realize that's not their head. That's why you don't like hats? Where did you get that toe? But yeah, Groot is wholesome stuff in the first movie. And by the end of the second movie, it's implied that he's starting to become like in his
turning
regrowth.
back into an adult Groot.
Yeah, but teenager Groot for a little while.
Teenager Groot plays a bigger role in
Avengers,
Infinity War, though.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But like it's family. Family.
Yeah.
It's that setting aside of differences. It's that self-sacrifice of Yondu that redeems him and stuff.
Because that's what a real dad would do.
Exactly.
Because he wasn't Quill's real father, but he died. Laid down his life for him as he would his own son. So he's able to find that redemption that way. And make amends for his past mistakes that he'd done. Also, kind of like that one pirate Ravager guy who sort of redeems himself a little bit too is kind of a minor character, but
then you've got Gamora rejecting Thanos and being good person,
Thanos.
and then
Thanos,
and then
Thanos.
coaxing her sister to not be evil.
Yep, and trying to be a loving sister to her because they were both.
They were rivals.
They were
for most of
rivals,
their
yeah.
life.
And for Thanos' approval, willing to, I'm going to put some dirt in your eye, to get to the top. But they're able to set that aside and try to mend their relationship. Let's see.
Then, of course, some of the previous points we went over
Yeah.
that are just also good.
Yeah. Beauty. What is beautiful in the Guardians of the Galaxy films? Music and visuals. And the writing
Good.
is pretty clever.
The writing's really funny. But, it's very, Marvel movie from the mid-2010s CG, which is a good look. It's very... It looks...
They finally leaned into the stylized part of it.
Right. This is, when the MCU started to get a little stranger and wackier. And it's so visually fun.
It sort of gave itself more space to breathe and have
More space?
unintentional puns.
Anyway. I also love just because it's the Space Marvel stuff, they allow themselves to reference some obscure characters and some of the
You
more
even see
obscure
Howard
lore.
the Duck in the background.
There's Howard the Duck in the background.
There's one of the Russian space dogs.
I almost forgot that Sylvester Stallone was the Ravager guy in the
Oh
second
yeah,
movie.
you broke a heart. Yeah, you can barely understand what he's saying per the usual arrangement, but he's there.
Man, I think I've only seen it once or twice.
Yeah. Well, John and Faith watched it a few weeks ago, so it's pretty fresh in my head.
Shout out to you guys listening,
Who's literally
not only from the other side of the door, but probably also
standing
to the
ominously over us
podcast from
with
the
a glass
future.
of wine.
This is the point in the podcast recording session that you were walking away, John, and
Sipping
going
wine.
upstairs. Sipping wine. Down on the couch. We're narrating what you're doing, and you don't know it right now, but you will when you hear it, and it'll be funny. I promise.
Yeah.
Anyway, beauty.
The real friends was the psychological warfare we made along the way. Not psychological warfare. Mind games, that's what I was going to say. Those are different things.
Yes,
Those are
wildly
different
interchangeable.
things.
Okay, before this goes too off the rails, unity, what brings things back together?
Family.
Family. Actually, though.
Yeah.
Groot literally ties them all together with his cornucopia of his big tree hug.
He's a tree
You see,
hugger.
Mother Russia tree hugs you.
But they are the guardians of the galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
Them as a group, their bond, their ties, their struggles, their disagreements, they're pushing through them. It's this whole found family dealio.
Mm-hmm.
It turned into this whole big deal.
Anybody have anything else to add?
No.
Cool. Well, in that case, thanks for listening to the Palladium Papists. You can listen to us on Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Palapapists. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or complaints, or suggestions for future episodes, email us at palladiumpapist@gmail.com. We will talk to you guys again next week. Bye.
I am Groot.